Nothing really felt like I had to change my strategy. And although my strategy may not have been very good, what I was doing, and maybe I did need to change it, nothing felt like it was encouraging me to experiment anymore. Hi there, welcome to Games Over Coffee Consulting. My name is Devon. That's dog. My name is Devon. People give me their games and I give feedback on their game design. Today I'm a little sick, so I sound a little weird. Today we're talking about Boundless Paths by Oakland. This game is described as a roguelike tower defense game. It's tower defense, except you're surrounded by fog. As you progress through the game, you have tiles that you can click on, and each tile has either like blank terrain where you can build a tower, or full terrain where you can't build a tower. You can extend the path that the monster is taking, or you can find treasure. And basically all you do is you build towers to prevent monsters from getting to your base. Although there are different things that you can do. You also have boss runs in here where you have high level enemies come in and they don't just attack your base, but they also attack your towers. There's layers that you can uncover. You can attack the layers one by one if you want to. So I haven't played a ton of this game just because I really suck at these types of games. It sucks for me because I really feel like, as someone who likes game design a whole lot, I really want to separate myself from my taste when it comes to, playing the games. And I've given feedback on, like turn-based games before, which is something that I'm not very good at, but I still like trying to play them and trying to figure out exactly why I feel the way I do when I play those games. And in this game, I'm going to try my best to try to, separate that personal taste. I mean, design is subjective, so you could make an argument that what I'm doing here is perfectly fine. I can't be giving objective advice. There is no such thing as objective advice for game design, because game design is based on communication, and it's just based on what it is that the developer wants to do with their game. So basically what I'm trying to do is looking at what the developer is developing and what experience they're trying to provide, and seeing if they're providing that experience on my end, and if it works for me, and if it doesn't. The best thing you can do for improving your game design is playtesting to see if your audience is getting the type of experience that you want to deliver. So always increase your playtesting. Try to, playtest as much as you can. Giving it to one person like me is not going to give you all the information that you need. However, I will give my opinion and what I got from the game. So this game, while I played it, like I said, I'm very bad at these types of games, and I didn't get very far in this one. What I was looking at in this game was that term roguelike. That genre, roguelike, has really become a huge thing, and it means all kinds of different things now. It's no longer just like the game Rogue. It's now could mean things like random upgrades. It could mean things like randomness in your game, random environments. It could be all kinds of things. So anyway, what classifies a roguelike from one and another doesn't really matter. That's not really what I'm about here. What I'm really wanting to get to is why you, Oakland, the developer of this game, why you were trying to go for a roguelike, or at least what that means to you and what kind of experience you wish to provide here. So when the developer submitted their game, they said this about it. They said, "It's a tower defense exploration roguelike hybrid. I hope players will enjoy adapting their strategy based on what they find during each exploration phase. As a roguelike, I hope that each defeat will inspire the player to figure out how they can improve their chances at victory next try, i.e. they feel that they learned some strategies from the experience and they can improve on the next run, eventually winning within a reasonable number of tries." So that's what I'm going to be focusing on here, is the idea of what roguelike means in this context, and that means experientially different in terms of strategy. Now, this is a huge subject in game design. Game depth, basically. What game depth is experientially different gameplay moments. So what we're going to talk about here is what experientially different moments mean in terms of strategy for this game. Now, the reason why I want to talk about strategy, one, because you said strategy in your experience, that you want people to learn different strategies as they go forward, but also because I feel like this is one thing that's a little bit weird in tower defense games specifically. I think because tower defense games have this idea of building up one specific strategy when you begin the game and carrying that strategy until the end of the game. Now, sometimes it can change depending on the types of enemies, I guess, that are attacking and stuff. In this game specifically, the things that are influencing your decisions are the types of paths that you have, the types of towers that you have, and the types of enemies that are attacking. So how does that influence the player's behavior as they play the game? As the player plays the game, the strategies that they have are, like I said, they're planting towers and upgrading those towers. But how many things are actually influencing the player's strategy. So what is strategy in games? Strategy is defined by quite a lot. This one I found in a strategy game on Wikipedia. The player's decision-making skills have a high significance in determining the outcome. I would say that's a great overview of the idea of strategy, about what the player is trying to do as they play the game. They have decisions that they make in the game, and those decisions determine the outcome of what they're trying to do. And then changing those decisions to get a different outcome or to get an optimal outcome is basically the idea that we're trying to go for in roguelikes, where we're trying to change the strategy, where we're trying to enforce experimentation or throw wrenches in players' plans so they can formulate different types of strategies. So if we look at other roguelikes, in a game like Vampire Survivors, for example, that game is all about upgrading. And when you're upgrading in there, a lot of times you might feel like you need to upgrade to a certain level of weapon in order to take on a certain enemy at the very end. So you may do that by following a single weapon along your upgrade tree. However, the upgrades that are presented to you are random, so you never know exactly what you're going to get as you go forward. And that's the element that makes you change your strategy. Is it better to choose one thing over the other? Say you wanted to upgrade garlic, but garlic isn't being presented all the time. So you're thinking, okay, maybe I should go with knives instead. The idea is that you're changing your strategy based on the things that are being presented to you. Another example is Dead Cells. In Dead Cells, you have a bunch of different types of weapons, and sometimes the weapons that you have that you've upgraded are not very good for killing certain enemies. So you might need to switch weapons, or at least switch the way in which you approach enemies. In a game like Downwell, whenever you find a heart or whenever you find a charge, they always change your weapon. And that changes the amount of times that you can shoot, which means it changes the amount of descent that you have as you go down. All of these things are throwing wrenches into your plan to try to change the way that you decide going forward. So that being said, what types of things are being thrown into our plan when we play Boundless Paths in order to change our decision as we go forward? So the goal is always the same, obviously. The goal is to eliminate all the monsters. So what things then are changing in this game to influence those decisions? You have different types of enemies, and you have different types of branching of the paths, and you have different terrain that you can place your towers. Those things are always random. Now, do those things effectively change the way that the player decides on how to go forward? If we take, for example, my gameplay and I'm trying to find an optimal spot to put my tower, usually I'm going to put my tower somewhere near the road. That's just what I'm always doing. Depending on the types of towers that I have, I might change the orientation of them. I might have one at the very far end of the path, one at the very near end of the path. But despite where the path is going, I usually put my towers next to the path. Every time that I play, I try to put my towers in the most efficient way possible. Now, before I go forward and I criticize this, I want to say that I'm not very good at these games, and I didn't get very far in this. So, take this just from me, it's just my experience. For me, it didn't feel like my strategy was challenged at all. I never felt like I was having to make different decisions based on my outcomes. There were some times that enemies came out and they were different than what I was expecting. For example, one time I started with orcs versus another time where I believe I started out with like some sort of lizard or something that was going very fast. And that surprised me a little bit, but it didn't really change the way in which I approached building my towers and upgrading them. Now, like I said, depending on who's playing the game, it might change their strategy, but for me, it didn't change my strategy. Nothing really felt like I had to change my strategy. And although my strategy may not have been very good, what I was doing, and maybe I did need to change it, nothing felt like it was encouraging me to experiment anymore. Now, I know one of the things that this developer was trying to do was get the player to learn from their mistakes the next time that they play, and perhaps change their strategy that way. And while I did learn more effective ways of placing my towers, that was basically just me learning as I played the game. The game didn't have to have roguelike elements in there for me to understand that. If this was just a pure linear game, I would have understood it the same way. And I know what this dev is trying to do. They said when they submitted their game that they didn't want this game to have like a perfect solution. They didn't want people to just go on the internet, look up perfect solution for Boundless Paths, and then plug them all in. And putting these random elements in a game like this to prevent that is a great idea, but it doesn't really give me any experientially different types of decisions. My strategy is basically the same. Because there's not a whole lot of things that are influencing my actual gameplay of stopping enemies, then my strategy basically stays the same every time that I play. So then what would this look like if we were to try to change the way that the player decides? One of the ways in which we could throw wrenches in their plans is by providing them with completely different towers every time that they play. This is not advice of what you should do in your game. This is just a thought experiment. If we were to change the types of towers that the player had while they were playing the game. Say like the first tower that they had were only poison towers, or, you know, that sounds kind of weird, but if we gave them different towers every time that they played the game, it would make for different decision making. The only thing that I feel like I could see that would be different in this kind of decision making would be either the types of towers that they're placing or the places in which they're placing those towers. But because these roads are more or less the same, there's just every now and then some straight parts and some bends, they would have to be drastically different to really change the player's mind on where they're going to place the towers. If we had maybe different roads, maybe roads that sped up or slowed certain monsters, if we had different terrain, maybe terrain that eats certain towers, or maybe terrain that works better with certain towers, those types of things that randomize would make the player always have to think differently and basically introduce that roguelike element that you would want in there. Now, I'm not saying that Boundless Paths lacks the roguelike mentality that it claims to have. It's just those are the things that I felt were lacking in the roguelike mentality of the game. If we wanted to change that, those are, you know, certain ways in the thought experiment way that we could change them. So that being said, everything else in the game worked very, very well. And I always do this where I do the heavy critique first, followed by the things that I love, when it really should be the opposite way. But the things that I really liked about this game were that it was very cohesive, and it had a very, very, very good stair-stepping quality to their tutorials. The very first time that I played the game, I was never lost. I found out exactly what to do, and I hate these types of games, honestly. The tower defense games are not my jam at all. But this one led me through everything and very much made me understand. And with games that have a whole lot of management in them like these, it's easy for a person like me to get lost in this type of, you know, sea of decision making that you have to do. But it's really nice for a game like this to be able to explain everything right then and there. The only thing that I would cut back on is probably the amount of text that you have and some of the pop-ups that you have. Thank you again, Oakland, for submitting this game. If you're a developer and you're not this developer, you can submit your game if you'd like. There's a link in the description, or you can go to this website, gamesover.coffee. I also have another channel. I also have a Discord, by the way, if you want to get playtesting done. There's a bunch of awesome developers in there that do really good work. So thank you so much for watching. I don't have my coffee with me today because I'm sick. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.